Good morning and welcome to PSJA Java Chat, your morning chat with your favorite PSJA ISD Instructional Technology Integration Specialist, where we discuss EdTech tools and trends with invited guests and, of course, our morning coffee.
In episode 1 of Java Chat, Nelda Reyes from Yzaguirre Middle School talks to us about integrating technology and sustainability with her students, and how she got awarded a grant for drones in her classroom.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on this Java Chat. It is our first Java Chat for the 2023-2024 school year here at PSJA ISD, and I am proud and have the honor and privilege to welcome our very first guest for the school year, Miss Nelda Reyes. Miss Nelda Reyes teaches at Yzaguirre Middle School. We are going to find out a little bit about what she does in the classroom, how she incorporates technology, and get into a little bit of sustainability as well, as that is one of the new initiatives here at PSJA ISD. So let's get started. First of all, thank you very much, Ms. Reyes, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It is my pleasure. And let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with our very first question. As you know, we are the Instructional Technology Department. So I want to know, what is your philosophy on including technology in the classroom?
Technology in the classroom. My philosophy for including technology in my classroom would be generally to enhance the learning experience of my students. So technology use, I feel, shouldn't replace a traditional teaching method. Rather, we should use it as a supplemental for teaching, or like a resource tool, just to facilitate our teaching and students' learning. So like we can personalize their learning, for students using digital resources. We can foster collaboration. Technology allows us to, give them faster feedback versus, handing, paper and pencil. And of course, students always favor the gamification. So that's a plus for us as teachers and them as students, So my goal is, just to use the technology to enrich my students' learning while, keeping in mind, and considering the needs of all students, of course.
Awesome. We love that, we know you use a lot of technology in your classroom. So we know you follow that philosophy of, using that and promoting that with your students. What is your vision for using drones for instructional purposes this year? I've heard a lot about that from Marco.
Yes, actually, it was something that, my sixth graders are now seventh graders. They proposed this thing that they wanted to get drones. And I think we just did so many audits that, they saw so many needs. And, that was one of them, that they wanted to do a geographical study. Unfortunately, my sixth graders are now in seventh. They come over, and if they're part of my EcoRise team, they will be joining us. But, my vision for incorporating these drones for instructional purposes this year would be to provide more hands-on learning opportunities for these kiddos, or for my students. Just trying to engage them more into that learning, through project-based learning. And of course, always tying in the sustainability focus of the lesson, right? So the plan is to use the drones this year to conduct a geographical and environmental study using the drones here at RYMS. And what's awesome about it is that some of these kiddos, when I told them, they said, "Miss, we can just use Google Earth." And I'm like, "We can?" And they're like, "Yeah, back in fifth grade." So some of them took it upon themselves to actually already learn stuff like this. So I'm like, nice. We do have a partnership with Texas A&M Kingsville and the ag department there. And they actually, suggested using GPIS, which is another platform that we can use. I'm not knowledgeable on it, neither are the kids, and we haven't been able to meet with them. But for the meanwhile, we'll be using, Google Earth, and they've expressed it that they know how to use it. And of course, the goal is to capture aerial images, various shots of the aerial images, and map the landscape and monitor the ecosystem to propose an eco audit, which will allow us to create a communal public space for at our campus, which we currently do not have one. So that's the goal. I mean, drones, however,
How did you get the drones for your campus? I know people are probably wondering how you were able to get those.
You know what? And it was kind of like a long shot. It was I had exhausted it, and I do go a lot through EcoRise, and they do fund a lot of our projects. And I had exhausted my money that I could get from them. So a long shot, I tell them, "Okay, guys, we can do donors choose." So, and then Ms. Lugo, our amazing librarian, she like tells us, donors choose, donors choose. There's community members that'll do it. And we put it out there, and I just shared it on social media. And we were lucky enough to partner up with United Airlines, and they went ahead and funded 144 drone projects, and we were one of the ones selected for it, which we feel super lucky. And the kids actually used it on Monday, and it was amazing. They've flown them
Wow.
twice already. So
How many drones did you get?
we got 4. It was a $2,500 grant.
Wow. That is really cool. We can't wait to see them. So moving on from the drones, think about some of the trainings that you saw during our conference. What is your favorite tech tool so far that you utilized in your teaching?
Well, the use of tech tools, obviously has to be aligned to our teaching goals. And, of course, again, the needs of our students. So I would have to say that before the drones got funded, I utilized a lot of coding and computer science. So I'm like an advocate for coding, and I noticed that a lot of my kiddos that are struggling, or that they're struggling with reading, we found ways of incorporating annotations, of passages and vocabulary using coding. They love to use Scratch. So that's something I had never used, because I would use code.org. And now they introduced Scratch to me last year. So I'm like, oh my God, why are we animating through Google? It's like, let's use Scratch. That's amazing. And the kids did it. They were actually, some of those eco audits were created through Scratch. So I'd have to say that one. I do use a lot of Nearpod, Google Docs, Canva, Screencastify. And as Marco knows, I use Spotify, because I do have a podcasting channel for my kiddos that is not shared out. But they don't give any information as far as the campus or their names or anything like that. But I like to use those kind of platforms so they can collaborate, and it just gives them a place where they can amplify their voice. And it's a platform. I've heard recently, though, and I read through an article, that Minecraft is actually being used now to create a virtual green cities. So before the kiddos even propose those projects, they can create it through the use of Minecraft, which they're very knowledgeable in. So I like to use, it's a lot of coding. I love a lot of coding, because I know the kids know how to use it.
That's so neat that you're using, so much technology in your classroom, and that you're getting the students so involved. I love seeing that. And I'm sure it makes them like really excited. And you talked a lot about the EcoRise program. So I know that kind of goes with sustainability a little bit, and that's kind of the hot topic this year at PSJA. That's what we're working towards. How does technology benefit sustainability here at PSJA and at your campus?
At PSJA and at our campus, well, I think that the best way that technology benefits sustainability for us and for PSJA as a district, it would be by promoting environmental awareness and of course, eco-friendly practices. Maybe the integration of solar panels, which was another audit that my kiddos did last year, and we didn't get to, get it done. They actually proposed an audit of being able to recycle the water that's in our retention ponds, and using that to sustain gardens that we were going to plant, and we just didn't get to do that because it was so late in the year. The students noticed that the water that was being retained, it stayed there for a couple of days, and they said, well, what can we do with it, instead of letting it seep into the ground or soak into the ground, get absorbed. We can literally create everything like digital now, including like students' journals. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, we still have to, them write, and stuff like that, because we do teach them strategies for the start that they have to do on paper. But of course, the online learning platforms and, interactive learning tools and these platforms are amazing. So like Teams has Mr. Cerda, our amazing CLL, as well as, so many things that he provides for us, like platforms and things that we can use. But I guess the integration of technology focusing on sustainability efforts allows PSJA and our campuses to reduce the environmental impact. Like, instead of running the millions of copies that we're running, it could be virtual, So, it could be online, like those student journals and stuff like that. So we try to, as far as RLA, we're like 95% online. So we very rarely run copies, and of course it advocates for our planet as well. So teaching those kids that the importance of advocating for the, sustainability of our planet.
That is awesome, Ms. Reyes. I really do like your answer in terms of cutting down on the amount of copies. Plus, you get to you can go into work later and you can get out earlier if you don't have to rely on going to the copy machine. I always try to kind
Exactly.
of
It's very
no,
useful. It's very resourceful. You know what? It cuts down on teacher planning time.
right. And that's something that I always try to advocate for when I go to a campus. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes I don't get the response that I want. But still, it's one of those things that here at the Instructional Technology Department, we are trying to go a little bit, more computer friendly and not so reliant on the copiers. But that is awesome. And kind of going on that note, I want to ask you a question. How do you improvise a lesson without technology when it becomes available? Because, it does tend to happen every so often.
Right, and us, me being a sixth grade teacher, you know how we tiered down from 876 to in order to pass out those Chromebooks. So we do have to find ways of, starting our first week or so with without the devices. But now that we are so used to the use of technology for teaching, without it, it can be a challenge, but it certainly is possible. And at all times, hands-on lessons, of course, lead to a lot of creative and engaging lessons, which, that we should be able to remove them from the devices for a while and be able to, still do interactive lessons that they do in their groups. Planning ahead, of course, is a very useful, planning ahead, it provides for, okay, so if the internet's down today, or the computers, the 10 kids forgot their Chromebooks or didn't bring them or aren't charged, what can we do? So planning ahead for those, days or those circumstances, of course, helps. But of course, we can create a lot of question-based lessons where they do hands-on, they create their own anchor charts, and we've done that. Of course, technology would facilitate all of this, but they also need to learn that, they can't depend totally on technology all the time, because sometimes it does break down, it doesn't work. So they have to pull out, the hardcover dictionaries and thesauruses. Of course, they hate to, because it's easier just to click on there and open it for themselves, pero pues ni modo, we like to have like Socratic seminars, discussion groups, where we debate topics and create simulations of different, if we're reading a passage, okay, so let's debate about it. And then of course it leads to the writing that we're having to do now, so, well, I guess across, grade levels and content. But yeah.
Awesome. Great answer. Do you know that there's also like ways to teach coding without having to use technology? You can use offline coding. And that's really cool to look into. Sometimes when the internet is not working and you want to do coding, you can do sequencing also with offline coding. And that's something that I just remember because Debbie and I used to do coding with CS First. And one of the first lessons was with offline coding. So it was kind of cool with that. When did you know that using technology in the classroom was more beneficial to student learning than traditional learning methods?
I hate to say it, but I would have to say during the pandemic. I mean, I feel so blessed that, I did go through the technology. I have a master's in technology. So I'll be honest, I didn't suffer at all, and I loved it. And the way that we were able to engage these students, even during virtual learning, the fact that a lot of them came back and re-signed in, re-logged in, lets you know that it just facilitates it for them more. I guess I would also have to say that when my own kiddos were struggling, my children, at one point, I went out there and I sought some technology apps, because some of us, we can't afford tutors and stuff. So it's like, okay, let me see what I can find online. When I saw it working for them, I said, this might work for my students too in class. So, of course, there's a lot of platforms out there and apps that we can utilize, but, being able to just narrow down what works for our students and what works for us as teachers, is amazing. So when I saw that some of these kiddos were able to, of course, not 100%, but some of them are able to grow, it's like technology is an amazing, amazing resource for that.
Thank you.
Oh, Debbie, I think you're muted.
Sorry, guys. I was like, I'm muted. I'm just talking away. So Nelda, we do kind of see you as like a master in technology, using that with your students. So kind of like a master teacher using that. But we do still have some teachers that are reluctant to try technology integration in their classroom. So do you have any advice for those teachers?
I guess well, I guess that many teachers like may initially feel, reluctant in a way to integrate technology into their classroom for various reasons, of course, like concerns with learning curves and, disruptions. Of course, nowadays, a lot of our kiddos misuse technology in a lot of ways. But, if we, I guess I would tell them that our students are a generation of students that were born with a device literally in their hands. So they're very, very well versed in using it. So I guess a slow and gradual incorporation of, manageable, of course, tech tools and activities that, would be conducive for the teacher. And, of course, as well, there are a lot of amazing people that we can reach out to. I mean, even Marco, I don't know how many times, sometimes I message Marco, hey, I'm struggling with this, buddy, and they'll help us out. Our CLLs on campus, our librarians are amazing. Other teachers are on campus as well. They're very knowledgeable in the use of technology. So just go out there and look for help. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help. And also, I mean, don't be afraid to make errors in the actual use of technology, because the ones that are going to, get you out of the trouble you're in are the kids. Oh, I've used it, or miss, try it here, try it there. Like Monday when we were flying drones, I've never flown drones, and the kids figured it out in about 5 minutes. And I was like, what? So, and I had tried it for a weekend, and I'm like, they did it in 5 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, so I'm like, I felt a little, I mean, but, I love to ask and tell my students that, even if, we know, I still ask, just because you never know, it could be a better answer or a better, solution to it. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to use it, just integrate it in there and try it out, and eat slowly. And eventually you'll see that it's less work for us as teachers and it's more engaging for the students.
Hey Nelda, I want to ask you something. I forgot to put it in our list of questions, but I always ask you about it every time I go to your classroom. For those who do not know, at the end of last year, you were using a lot of audio equipment to do podcasts with the students. And I want to ask, what is your? I know you got started late in the game last year when it was toward the end of the year, but what do you plan on using with your audio equipment? What do you plan on doing with the kiddos as far as podcasts are concerned? Because as we're doing right now, we're in a podcast as well, and so I know that you value that a lot. And so explain that a little bit to us.
So like one of the things that I like about technology is that you can give the students their own autonomy to be able to choose or select whatever tool they want to present with. So after they do their PBL, and it does not take away from my lessons, because PBL is totally done in my rotation. So it's one station that I put for them, and they get to go to it twice a week. So they work on sustainability, they pick their own topic. And in addition, they picked, the platform they want to present it in. It'd be Nearpod, it'd be, Google Slides, whatever they want. And podcast is one of their, options that they have. So that's really what I use it for. They can either do it without video, they can do it with video, and a lot of them, no, I want to be like my favorite YouTuber, and they want to come out so like us, that they're here, and they'll literally hold a podcast with each other, and or sometimes they say, I want the whole room to be, my audience, and they'll poll the audience and they'll, question them. So it's amazing for that, bringing out that those kiddos that are afraid to speak out in class or whatever. It's a way that I've seen will engage them into wanting to participate, especially because they do it in a group. Like it's a group of 3 or 4 kiddos that are actually podcasting together, and they get to choose if they want the whole class or they don't.
Wow, that is super cool. Do you use a specific software for that?
It's a Spotify, and it's for free, so I don't pay for it.
Cool.
Yeah, you can pay for it, but the free version, it works just as well.
Awesome. So let's go to business now. Let's talk about STAR 2.0. STAR 2.0 has various question types like fill in the blank and multi-select and drag and drop. What or strategies would you recommend getting students prepared for this year's end of course tests?
I think what we've seen that drill and kill doesn't work anymore. I mean, it can work, but you literally have to do it all year. So I think a combination of strategies and resources. There are STAR 2.0 practice tests and sample questions provided in the actual TEA website. The kiddos can go in there and they can use materials, that are closely aligned with the format and, the content of the actual test. Others that I have utilized or we have utilized here on campus would be like, Edulastic, formative assessment, dead puzzles, quizzes. Gym Kit is very popular. Nearpod is very popular. And you can either get lessons that had already been created by the teachers or in the Nearpod library, or it allows you to create your own. So we've gone in there, even in Google Docs, it allows us to integrate now and create a practice where they do the actual drop down, which is the inline. I believe it's called the inline, where they select the question. And that's amazing for the grammar part of the test. So there are also, practice sets that are available now in Google Classroom. We noticed that too, that you can create the practice sets in there. Those allow you for a lot of the fill in the blanks, the drag and drop. Google Slides is amazing for the drag and drop as well. But yeah, Google Slides is like, the kids want to use something more innovative now. There are a vast majority of apps already, embedded and ready to use or available to create and assign. So ultimately, I say stick to like 2 or 3 of them that work for you. Don't get overwhelmed either, but you can use like 2 or 3 that yet you see that the kiddos are engaged with and that that you can get very well versed in.
Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
All righty. Thank you so much for that response, Ms. Reyes. We have one more question for you, and I just want to ask, in your career of teaching and utilizing technology and in a lot of your daily activities, I just want to ask, what was one of your more proud moments in using technology in the classroom?
I would have to say the podcasting. I mean, the podcasting is something that I hadn't, and again, it was a grant. I went out there, I said, let's see what happens, right? I put it out there, it got completely funded, and I'll be honest, I haven't paid for any of the equipment I have. They do have a hydroponic system that was totally funded as well. So it's a lot of people out there in the community that actually help to fund teacher stuff that we want to do with the kiddos. So when I got the podcasting, I was like, oh my God, how do I integrate this? How do I embed it into what the kiddos are doing? And, a lot of them, believe it or not, they love TikTok. They love, so they already know how to record. They're amazing in front of the camera. They're amazing in front of just recording themselves and having that dialogue with each other. So when I integrated or introduced the podcast, I introduced it in one of my enrichment classes to do cartoon scripting for using a particular genre. And they created a script and then they had to podcast about it. And I said, you know what? I was hooked. And I said, this will totally work for my kiddos in class. Now I have to figure out how to, embed it. And, it works amazingly for PBL through sustainability. So I'd have to say that one. I was very impressed with what the kids can do.
That is really awesome. Nelda, we really appreciate you being on our very first episode of our Java Chat for this school year. I was very intentional with the the teacher that when we were like, oh, who's going to be our first guest, I was very intentional about who was going to be and where they were from, because of everything I'd seen. And I know Valentine and Debbie and the rest of the team might have not seen what's going on in your class as much as me, but I really wanted to bring that into the spotlight. I really wanted other teachers at PSJA ISD to know what you do, that you incorporate technology, you incorporate podcasts, you incorporate sustainability, and it still goes with your scope and sequence of what you do around for the year. And so I just kind of wanted to bring that to the forefront. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Yzaguirre Middle School is an awesome, awesome school. And I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today. I don't know if you got anything to add on, guys. Valentine, Debbie?
I just want to thank
I have one thing really quick. Like it can't be done. It can't be done without the support of administrators. So I thank my administrators. Mr. Peña's amazing. Ms. Dueñas, that they allow me to do my crazy stuff in my classroom, and they leave me alone. They let me do it. So,
And thank you for being an innovator and reaching out for those grants. And your students are so fortunate to have you to get those awesome experiences. So thank you. You're on mute now, Val.
You're muted, Val.
I was like all excited. I was like, yeah, and I want to see that podcasting, and I want to see the drones. I love gadgets. I'm like Debbie and Marco and David know that I love my gadgets. So I'll be really excited to see that happening. Like I'll be like,
I'll share the videos with you all. The very first one, there was like about a 5-minute recording of grass. Okay, so we
Hey,
figured it
that's
out. We
good.
turned it on.
That's sustainability right there.
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you, Nelda, and you probably will see us sooner rather than later because not only me but the rest of the gang here at Instructional Technology want to see how the drones are going. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing all of the experiences and wisdom that you have with us today.
And maybe we
Oh,
can
thank
you
y'all
can
for
start
having me on.
you can start inter-campus mail with drones. You never know.
That's what I said. There's no need to leave the room, guys. If I need to read it to a teacher, we can literally fly a drone that way.
Wow.
Drop something off. You know what? And one of my kiddos actually said, Miss, do you know that one of the what they're used for on the field? And one of the teachers was telling them how they're used for crop in the crop field. To I'm assuming to put pesticide or something on the crop. So it's amazing what they're learning with them. But thank you all very much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Have a great day, Nelda. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.